Hello and welcome again. So previously we have previously talked about this Bacillus anthrax and Bacillus cereus, and we are talking about this gram-positive bacilli, and among them we have talked about the Bacillus species. Now we'll be talking that is the anaerobic gram-positive bacilli. We have already discussed that there are only few bacilli in the gram-positive. All gram-positive are mainly cocci, and vice versa is positive for the gram-negative. That is, maximum gram-negative are bacilli. Only few, that is Nigeria and Moraxella, was gram-negative cocci. Other majority of the cocci are gram-positive, and there are only few bacilli that are gram-positive, but they are medically very important. Okay. So in previous lecture we have talked about the gram-positive bacilli, that was the aerobic organism that produce the spore, and that is the Bacillus species, Bacillus anthrax and Bacillus cereus. Now moving on, and we are on the page 138 now, and moving on we are now reaching to the gram-positive bacteria, that is the Bacillus, but anaerobic organism. Let me clear you one thing, that aerobic and anaerobic organism. Aerobic are the organism that needs oxygen, that survive in the presence of oxygen, whereas anaerobic are the organism that dies, that get killed in the presence of the oxygen. They are known as the anaerobic bug. Why they are called anaerobic? Because they cannot survive in the presence of the oxygen. Why they cannot survive in the presence of oxygen? Because due to the lack of the two enzymes, that is the superoxide dismutase and catalase. This help into the breakdown of the respiratory product, that is what we can say oxygen reactive species, that get neutralized by these two enzymes. They convert it into hydrogen peroxide and then into the water. They convert this oxygen reactive species into hydrogen peroxide by superoxide dismutase, and then they convert into the hydrogen peroxide into water by the catalase enzyme. So since they are having lack of this superoxide dismutase and catalase, they are unable to survive in the oxygen respiration and they get killed. So the anaerobic organism, that is gram-positive bacilli which are anaerobic, are mainly will deal with the Clostridium species. There was other as well, like Propionibacterium echini, which is also called the Cutibacterium. If you remember previously in this our lecture, the chart diagram, or say you can say the tree diagram, or you say this chart, if you remember over here, this is the gram-positive bacteria, where we have talking about the bacilli. Aerobic, we have talked about the Bacillus. Now we are talking about the anaerobic organism, that is the Clostridium. Other was the Cutibacterium, formerly known as the Propionibacterium echini. Propionibacterium. There are other as well, like anaerobic actinomyces, which is a filamentous bug, and we will discuss about something about that also. Okay, so let's move on the page 138, where we are talking about the Clostridium species. Okay, now Clostridium, actually these are the bug which I have already told you. We have discussed this organism in our exotoxin lecture as well, in which we have discussed this, and the toxin that is produced by the Clostridium tetani and botulinum, they were acting by inhibiting the release of the neurotransmitter. Okay, that is Clostridium tetani and Clostridium botulinum. These both can produce the toxin. They are the exotoxin. They are very harmful, and they are going to make a severely disease to you by their exotoxin. Okay, let's move on. So Clostridium is a gram-positive spore-forming obligate anaerobic rods. Tetanus toxin and botulinum toxin are proteases that cleave the snare protein involved in the neurotransmission. So we have previously discussed about this, that Clostridium, both tetanus, that is the tetanospasmin, and botulinum, that is botulinum toxin, both are proteases in nature, that can cleave the protein, that is an enzyme that cleave that snare protein. What is the snare protein? That are usually a protein that helps in the release of this neurotransmitter. So it has a like Clostridium tetani name as the Rensa cell, whereas in case of the Clostridium botulinum, they inhibit the acetylcholine release at the neuromuscular junction, cause botulism. Okay, so these are the two things that we need to remember. Now talking about the Clostridium tetani. Clostridium tetani is a pathogen that is non-invasive and remains localized to the wound site. That is important. Okay, produce tetanospasmin and exotoxin cause tetanus. So that the important thing is that when we are talking about the Clostridium tetani, it is a pathogen that is actually non-invasive and remain localized to the wound site. So the bacteria doesn't itself is going to cause you disease. It is actually non-invasive, but it produces the tetanospasmin and exotoxin causing tetanus. So that is important actually. So if you repeat it, pathogen is a non-invasive and remain localized to the wound site, but produce tetanospasmin and exotoxin cause tetanus. Tetanus is a disease, but do not get confused with the tetani. One is a disease that is caused due to the lack of the calcium, that is tetani, but we are talking about the tetanus that is due to the bacterial infection, not due to the electrolyte imbalance. That you have to remember. So now this bacteria itself is only limited to the wound, but the toxin that is produced by them is spread by the retrograde axonal releasing this tetanospasmin that gets released, then that spread by retrograde axonal transport to the CNS and block the release of the GABA and glycine from the Rensa cell in the spinal cord. So if you have an infection over here, if you have got a road traffic accident, you have get bites with the old rusty iron, now at that site the spore get implanted, and then when it get contact with our body, that living things, it get the food, oxygen, not oxygen, it get the food, and it gets, if the proper environment, that the oxygen less environment or oxygen free environment, mainly in the subcutaneous space, not in the superficial, but deep wound will be get infected with the Clostridium, then you are now, there will be the germination of this bacteria. Once the bacteria gets germinated, what happen? They will now localize to that at the wound site, they will cause you the infection. And when there will be that many bacteria, they will release the toxin known as the tetanospasmin. Once this tetanospasmin is released, it actually get transported by retrograde fashion. Means if it is here, then you will transport it in backward and reach to the central nervous system, that is the spinal cord. And once it reaches to the spinal cord, then it will cleave, it will hydrolyze this Rensa cell in the spinal cord. This will damage, because we already have told that this toxin are proteases that cleavage the snare protein. In the snare protein in the spinal cord is the Rensa cell. And what is the function of this Rensa cell? This function of the Rensa cell was to release the GABA and glycine. Since the Rensa cell is not there, they block the release of the GABA glycine. So now, once you get tetanus infection, you have your Rensa cell is get damaged. Your Rensa cell is damaged, so you have no GABA and glycine in your body. Now, since there is no GABA and glycine in your body, the upper motor neuron, the central nervous system, are unable to control the lower motor neuron. So usually, what is the rule that upper motor neuron, that is the central nervous system, usually release this GABA and glycine and compress, inhibit the exaggerated movement of the lower motor neuron. If there is no central nervous system intact, if there is no GABA and glycine in your body, then your body movement will be rapidly and haphazardly movement occur. You cannot even properly walk. All the exaggerated movement will leads to a like drunken gait or something, like a mad people are moving or drunken people has moving. So in this way, there will be a situation like that. So there is a very much important of this GABA and glycine in our body to control our limb movement, lower motor neuron limb movement. But once this Rensa cell is not there, why? Because tetanospasmin has cleaved that, so there is no GABA and glycine. Since the GABA glycine is not there, what happened? The lower motor neuron tone get increased. It is actually cut off. It has got the paralysis, but its tone has been increased. So there is a spastic paralysis. That is important. You should not get confused with the flaccid paralysis. Actually, if you remember the lower motor neuron and upper motor neuron, if you are not, we can discuss in the anatomical chapter that if there is a lesion in the upper motor neuron, then there will be the spastic paralysis. If it is a lesion in the lower motor neuron, then develop the flaccid paralysis. Now, since we are talking about this GABA and glycine, lack of the GABA and glycine, these are present in the upper motor neuron. Now, since that is not there, they will cause the spastic paralysis. The tone will be increased. Okay. Then there will be another term like trismus. There will be the your jaw will be locked. Then there will be a rhizus sardonicus. That means your facial muscle will be contracted in such a manner that you will feel that like not a ghost, like a demon's smile. It is known as the demon's smile. And then there will be the opisthotonus, that is the spasm of the spinal extensor muscle, the back muscle, and because of that, it will be like a bow appearance. So because of that appearance, the Clostridium tetani will develop this opisthotonus. Okay. Now, talking about the tetanus is a tetanic paralysis. How we can prevent this tetanus? By prevent with tetanus vaccine, treat with antitoxin plus minus vaccine booster, antibiotics, diazepam for muscle spasm and wound debridement. So, for a patient who develop the tetanus, you need to treat them. Treatment with the tetanus vaccine. So, you need to boost the antibodies so that you doesn't develop this disease. If the patient has already developed, then you have to treat with the antitoxin plus minus vaccine booster as well as antibiotics and diazepam for muscle relaxation. So there, if a patient has already developed the tetanus, if it is not, you have just got a road traffic accident, you have just was a minor one, you have got just fights with the rusty iron, you can only take the tetanus vaccine. But if it is a major road traffic accident, you have seen that there is a wound is dirty wound, it has been already contaminated, and as the time has been passed, then you have to think that there already the bacteria has germinated and toxin is there, so you have to give the hemoglobin as well. So antitoxin is necessary. Then there will be a vaccine booster can plus minus, or you need to give antibiotics is necessary to kill the organism, and diazepam is necessary if there is the muscle has already spasm, if there is no GABA and glycine. So to relax the muscle, we need the diazepam, and also plus wound debridement is necessary. So in this way, Clostridium tetani become an important topic for the high yield topic for USMLE. And all information, actually there will be only one question, but you have to remember it is talking about an anaerobic gram-positive bacteria that release one of the exotoxin called tetanospasmin, and it has transport by the retrograde axonal transport and released to the central nervous system, that is spinal cord, where it break down this Rensa cell in the spinal cord and cause upper motor neuron lesion, like this. There will be the spastic paralysis with the muscle, there will be the muscle contraction, the extension muscle contraction, there will be Lozak, opisthotonus, and that is the like sardonicus, the demonishmal, and as well as the, since your back muscle has been contracted, your whole body get turns like backward, like a bow. So it gets backward muscle get contracted and your whole body get turns backside. And on treatment, we get vaccine. If it is already developed, then we treat the antitoxin plus vaccine plus antibiotic plus diazepam and wound debridement. And that all for Clostridium tetani.